Can you ping Lakshmi? Why is she not here yet? Lakshmi, how are you?
Doing well, Rishi. How are you doing?
Very good. We'll get going in about 2 minutes. Wait for a few more folks to join in. Okay. 2 more minutes and we'll get going. Going live on Facebook. Let me get that going. Okay, we are live on Facebook. All right. Welcome, everyone. This is Sunday afternoon. This is Memorial Day weekend. And we are all sheltered in place. And for the last 8 weeks, we have been having some wonderful conversations on various topics. And Sunday at 2 p.m. is our career advice sessions. So what we have done in the past is we have talked to folks who are in the job market, who are looking at LinkedIn profiles, how do you get in front of recruiters? And we have been talking to some tech executives. We have had on our Tech Thursday series, we have had the president of Informatica. We have had from Mayfield Funds, we have had their managing director and some very Silicon Valley well-known figures, luminaries. And we have had some wonderful conversations on the state of technology and innovation in the post-COVID-19 world. So what we're going to do today is basically dig in a little bit deeper when it comes to, product management in the post-COVID-19 world. So when you look at, in terms of what we have seen, what the issues are, obviously I think we have a tremendous amount of unemployment today. And the last figures that I saw was about 36 million unemployment. And so in the peak of the 1932 depression, was actually about 25.9% of America was unemployed. And if you look at the world as how it's shifting today, the economists are saying that we'll likely have about 35% unemployment. And these numbers are pretty stark. They're very drastic. And when you look at health insurance, for example, over 30 million Americans are now in a state where they don't have health care. And so these are tough times. There are tough challenges ahead of us, but this is the time for the brave to rise and morph perhaps, or carve out a new path, or just innovate in terms of what we are doing. There are some folks who are looking at launching startups. This is the perfect time to launch startups because you can build a good team fairly quickly together. You can also go out and figure out, if there's a need to morph careers. So if you look at myself, as a mechanical engineer, I found my way into IBM. And very early on in the IBM career, I was part of Silicon Valley Labs here. And I started working with the beta program. Essentially, you needed to have somebody who would work with, with all the customers. And I realized that this was a brand new career opportunity for me, in terms of taking my skills and building a customer face value for IBM. And so that led me into a role within IBM that worked out really well for 14 and a half years on the customer side of the business. And then I moved to Cisco in a product management role that I had never quite done before. But at the end of the day, it's all about basically understanding the market, figuring out what the customers want, and then applying that into your world, into your specific domain within the enterprise that you're working with. And so it's, and then I led from that experience, and back in those days, Cisco was actually trying to launch their whole product, the software product piece of it. And, so that was a pretty interesting stint I had with Cisco as they were looking to move from the world of hardware into software. And then I ended up running different business units, as I moved out from Cisco and, as the general manager of different business units and figuring out, how do you bring sales, marketing, product all together to build out a pretty good story. And now, I'm applying all those very same principles with respect to what we do in the world of politics. We talk about providing services cheaper, faster, better. And essentially that's been my calling in terms of the efficiencies that we have created in the world of the public sector. And the story is, in fact, I would love to invite all of you to jump in and just explore the option of what you can do in your community as an activist or just engaging into different causes and providing that value that is needed all around us. And sometimes, for me, it was, what am I going to do? What is, I would look behind me, who's going to engage with this particular problem that I see around me? And turns out there was nobody, and it needed some leadership and it needed somebody to step in and do something. And so that really became what led to a pretty incredible journey. So with that, I think enough about me. We are delighted to have, we have Lakshmi Sharma. And so what what we're going to talk about today is some of these aspects of product management and how a product manager is the CEO of the product. And so what we'll end up talking about today is, in the context of product management, what problem are you solving? Who are you solving it for? And how do you get it to the final conclusion? And how do you look at all the sources of information, the market signals, the customer insights in terms of rolling out a product strategy, in terms of taking all the people, process, pricing, performance, technology, and rolling out a pricing strategy? And what does it look like? Finally, when you succeed, what is the final outcome? What do you expect to make happen? So it's about 2:12 now, and we'll wrap it up at exactly 3 o'clock because we have to move on to something else. So let's do a quick introduction of Lakshmi. And in case you have Q&A, Lakshmi will be sharing her email address or phone number, perhaps, that you can connect with her after this meeting. And so Lakshmi is a public speaker, career coach. She's a DEI advocate and practitioner, and she's obviously been very successful here in Silicon Valley. I mean, she has held some very, very good positions in some of the name brand companies right here in Silicon Valley. She's a thought leader with decades of experience leading, driving strategy and transformation in engineering, business, and IT, leveraging people, process, and technology for successful business and even cultural outcomes. So with many successful, and also she's very candid. She's got a few failed products. Failure is always a good thing in Silicon Valley. We are learning from that. And having managed projects across various sizes of organizations like Cisco, Brocade, Juniper, RFITIO, Apsera, Target, Google. I mean, she's been there in lots of different companies. She has gained transformation expertise with digital transformation and also cloud adoption for incumbent and greenfield ventures. So she is obviously a fearless leader in Silicon Valley. It takes a lot to succeed in the innovation capital of the world here in Silicon Valley, where it's the best of brains that get together. And so when you're competing with the best of brains, to surf up is very hard. And Lakshmi has obviously proven herself time and time again in many, many different ventures. So with that, Lakshmi, let's talk a little bit about this, in terms of, how the morphing happened for you, in terms of what you started off with your education. And then here you moved into an expertise with product management. So I'm pretty sure when you were back in school, you didn't quite see yourself in the arena of product management. So how did that morphing come about?
Yeah, thank you so much, Rishi, for inviting. And then your career is so impressive and all the lineup that we have had with Manik and others. So, I'm feeling grateful to be talking to all the folks like who are here or after the session, those who, joined the session like offline as well. So how did it morph? Yes, exactly as you said. So when you're growing up in India, and my time when I was growing up, it was like either you become doctor or IAS officer, like, things like that.
Lakshmi, which is like 10 years ago, you were growing in India, right? 10 years ago. Yes, let's keep going.
Yes, exactly, right. So when I was growing up, but interesting was that, like, nobody in my family before my dad's side, like, has ever been to college. Of course, none of the women or girls. My mom didn't go to school. My dad was married at 16. So pretty different background. Like, just going to college was a pretty big deal. Like, but my dad was my role model. He decided to kind of, put us to studies. I did well. And the goal was that, hey, you become a doctor. It's funny, but my grandma was a friend of Indira Gandhi. So my grandma thought that I would be the Prime Minister of India someday. And then she said, no, but you should be a doctor first. So all kinds of things, right? So it was definitely not product management. But what I did learn, growing up in India was, and the kind of family I was in, it was like you learn like negotiation. I was part of a large family, a lot of relatives, neighbors. So what I think is that what I learned, my dad was into small business. So you learn negotiation every day. You learn prioritization every day. So these are the skills that are just inherent to how I grew up. Seeing like, the business is going down, then things going down, and how do you come back up? So resilience, and then prioritization, and, how do you adapt to the things like, So I think those are very important to being a product management leader. Product management as a field is also, as you mentioned, right? It's not pretty old. Like, there were roles like CEOs and COOs, but there was not a role of like chief product officer, for example, right? So there were roles of CTOs. So it's converging like over time. So the head of the products or product management role has become really important. So, and why is it so, right? Because the definition of, I would say, it's just my theory. So product means like product in manufacturing world, product in, say, services world. Product and services, when I did my MBA, we had a different definition of how you deliver to a service. So I did my MBA from Santa Clara University. So when you define a product, it was different from how you define a service. How you deliver a product, how you execute a product, and the roles and the pipeline and the whole end-to-end process was very different in the manufacturing world compared to how services were delivered. Services were more like, hey, I'm into this people-focused role, and that's a service. Product was something where there's a tangible being delivered, that's a product. And then they were both working towards some outcome, which was like, hey, people are able to use your products and services for their use. And definition was that, hey, product management and marketing, what they do, they convert like, so there is this concept of wants, there is a concept of like, what you desire. So how do you convert like what you desire to a want, and then like really bringing that into practice of what you really need? So those were some standard definitions. But when it converged, technology converged it. Technology converts the definition of product is something that you write a strategy for. How do you, and it starts by building a strategy for how do you make, what problem are you solving? Whether it's a product problem for manufacturing, whether there's a product for education, whether there's a problem for healthcare, as long as you're solving a problem that is helping somebody, and at the end, if it is also, either it is helping someone, which means it's helping society, is helping nature, helping environment, it has some outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is really good. Do you happen to have slides by any chance that you were going to share today?
Actually, no, I did not.
Oh, not a problem. Not a problem. We'll let you continue talking. But while we sort of dig in a little bit deeper, I would really like to understand a very specific use case. In terms of what happened. Perhaps a new venture that you joined, and there was a product challenge. If you can dig into that, that would be sort of very insightful. But in the meantime, I had something to share with our viewers here. So this is really what we are doing. Essentially, when you look at Lakshmi's journey, in terms of where she started back in India with a very specific field of education, what we realize is that morphing, that transformation has to happen within all of us in terms of how we are making a progression. And if you look at me as a geeky engineer working for IBM, and now there was the Bernie Sanders rally here in San Jose, and they actually put me on stage to introduce Bernie, right? And I would never ever have dreamt, like back when I was working for IBM, that I would be able to pull it off to speak in front of like 10,000 people. But that's the nature of how we transform ourselves when we create opportunities for ourselves. And clearly, Lakshmi has done that. So here is an opportunity for the youth of our community. We have been running an internship program for the last 6 years. This is the 6th year of the internship program. And if you know, like Tanu Kalra is part of this meeting, we ran this entrepreneurship boot camp for many years. And we have trained over 2,000 students of Silicon Valley and also in California with the art of entrepreneurship, talking about the mechanics of programming, but also about taking a crazy idea and turning that into a business plan. So, if you look at, they put me into a panel, we defined the K-12 computer science curriculum for the state of California that goes live in 2022. So that's the empowerment that we are creating. Every public school will have a K-12 computer science curriculum in 2022. So there are massive shifts happening, and that's the opportunity that you and I get to find out. And clearly, Lakshmi has has grabbed the opportunity and she's taken charge. So I invite your students, your students at home, or perhaps your nieces and nephews to join this opportunity that we are creating with this summer internship program. And we have a few hundred students have already joined, and our peak of activity will begin in 2 weeks. And you will find some incredible opportunities for your students. So spread this opportunity, take a screenshot, and please send it out to your friends and family. Perhaps you can post it on social media. And here is the opportunity for college students. In fact, Lakshmi's daughter is going to be joining as one of the managers. And yeah, we just have to figure out which role she's going to be involved in. But there are some tremendous opportunities like data analytics for folks who are in the world of computer science. Or, you know, when you look at pandemic, we have a pandemic role where we are helping our neighbors with some very innovative approaches to helping out seniors or building masks, working with hospitals, things like that. And also, these are experienced hire roles. If you are in the industry, if you have had some work experience, and you're sort of at a cusp where you're figuring out, you know, what you would like to do next, join us, because this will truly empower you. We have lots of director level roles, and including roles related to product, because we are constantly churning out new products and things like that. So with that, you know, I just wanted to provide that perspective for the youth, because youth, I see quite a few young students who are here. You know, I know Krina is been one of our former interns. She's here, and Agrima. You know, so we have some some amazing youth talent that have joined this, including Aditri and many more. So with that, let's get back to Lakshmi, and Lakshmi, take it away.
Sure. So let me get to, like, you know, some of the key tenets. Like, this session is for like people like who are already either product managers or who are looking for transition. I get reached out, like, you know, from many people on LinkedIn, like, hey, can you help me with my resume? I have changed transition careers over time, like, you know, so can you take a look? So like Rishi mentioned, I'll drop in my email ID if it is not there. Otherwise, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. So for those of you who are aspiring to be product managers, so what does that mean? What does that mean to be product manager? What are the things that if you are preparing for an interview, for a product management interview, or if you're transitioning from an engineering or other role into a product management? So the way I define is that product manager is the CEO of your product. And what does it mean? What do you do? So the way I perceive this in my product management role over years is that you define, like, what is the most important thing for you as a CEO to do. So that starts by thinking about strategy. So what am I first, you know, when you are thinking strategy, what are the components? The components are that people, I always start things with people, process, and technology, leveraging to an outcome. So let's start with people. So I start with the product strategy. Who am I building the strategy for? That means, what is this product built for? Like, is it going to be consumer? Is it going to be an enterprise? Is it going to be a telco, service provider? What is it? So you start with the people. So once you have identified what segment or what set of people you are writing this strategy for, then you get to the next part of, within that, what is the problem or the need I'm going to address? So in order to do that, you have to further narrow your problem down. Because if I say, I'm addressing it to consumers, so I work for Google. If I think about consumer, I'm talking about entire globe. Is that the problem you're going to solve? Is that the area you're going to focus on? Maybe in your role, like in my, when I'm looking at problem, when I'm building a product, I am looking at the global population. But you, in your case, you may not be, or you may be. So that's very important to narrow down that what is your address, what is the set of people, what is the problem that you're trying to solve. There are other kind of, you know, say lenses you can put on top of it. Are these the consumer or people in, say, certain part of the globe, certain part of the city, like, you know, so you can put all those filters on top. But the most important is, who are the people and what is the problem for those people you're going to solve. So once you have addressed that, sometimes it is a good idea. There's a very common concept these days, and over last, as I mentioned, that how product management has changed for IT technology or for cloud providers is that you also start to take a look at that. What kind of work, you know, what kind of industry I'm solving problem for? You hear about healthcare all the time, like COVID. A couple of things that COVID situation has brought up, a couple of use cases we call in product management, are healthcare being one of them. How are you addressing these healthcare challenges that we have? So are these consumer, are this set of people that you're trying to solve problem for, are you solving the problem for people who are looking for healthcare services? That's kind of a one way of looking at it. But in that case, you can also look at, am I the provider or am I the consumer of that product, right? So these are the ways for you to think. So as I mentioned, like start with product, people, process, and how you're leveraging technology to come to an outcome, right? So it's all about outcome, solving a problem. So once you have defined people, and then what are the tools that you have in order to identify, yeah, like let's say healthcare, or let's say it's education. Like, there is a lot of work going on in education these days. All kinds of data is out there, all kind of crunching and numbers and predictions happening about what vaccine will go or what kind of data is right. There are so many data sources out there. So when you're looking at that, then also understanding that in order to create your market segment, what is the right set of data? Because you cannot build, let's say, product, even if you're thinking, let's say, United States. You're not going to build a product. You may, right? But you need to be very focused. What we call in product management is that MVP, which is minimal viable product. You don't build a product that you're thinking today for a population which is going to be there like 2 years from now, right? For example, if it is a problem for healthcare, for COVID, then you're looking at the number of people who are going to be using in, let's say, in United States now, right? So if you're thinking of a healthcare vaccine, your market segment, so we use the word called market segment, and those of your product managers already know it. So then you're looking at what your market segment is going to be like, what is the problem you're solving. So that whole identification of people, market, segment, and the data that you capture in order to come up with this, that's your first step. So identifying problem, P starts with problem, for people, what set of people, and how do you identify the size of that market where your set of people are. So that's very, very important. Whether you're a startup, whether you're a large company, whether you're a mid-sized company, if you don't know that the problem you're solving is for what market, you're already missing on something. So we talked about problem, we talked about people, and then we talked about the data sources that you leverage to define what the market segment is. The market segment is the most important problem, what area you're addressing, and the market segment that you're going to launch it for. So once you have identified the problem, to which market segment, you have leveraged a lot of data sources, like standard kind of data sources would be there are all kind of market data out there. You can register to services. Let's say we heard some of the fellow panelists or speakers like in these series before. So you already heard like there are a lot of kinds of data sources for current situation. For let's say COVID situation, if you're building something, we heard in few sessions ago that hey, there are these apps being built, and you would have heard a lot about there's this app being built which are for contact tracing. So where would you go for that data, and who are the kind of people would you solve it for? So start by that, and the next step would be that how are you reaching those people, which is how. We start with what is the problem and who are you solving for, and then you're looking at how you're going to reach those people. So there could be different ways of reaching those people. So the way you will be sorry, in the cloud world, since I run product management for a cloud company. So everything is, you're talking about your phone, right? And then you go to, this is not an iPhone ad, but let's say any phone, everything starts from that browser that you have, right? You go, you type a URL, and there is something called, it goes through the web, it reaches your application. It can be sitting anywhere in some data center cloud. So how that experience is going to be delivered for your application, and is it the same experience that this consumer or people are used to and they can adapt to, right? So that how you deliver that experience is very important when you define your MVP. So in like the technology word, we will call it, hey, this is an API which gets resolved to a site, as simple as that, right? You say www.google.com, www.target.com, companies that I work for. So then where does it take you, and what is that experience like is a product manager's job. So this we call user experience. So as you hear, everything is about people. And like, Rishi had mentioned that it is about customers, it is about people. So when you are looking for a product job, when you are looking to enhance your skills to be in that product job, very important is that no matter what problem you're solving it to improve, enhance, augment the experience that your end users are going to get. So I've been hiring people, I've been interviewing people, mentoring startups for many, many years, and I've partnered with Rishi on one of the STEM program, the entrepreneurship boot camps that Rishi has run in some of the cities. And even there, the most important is that when we mentor people and we talk, I see with a lot of folks is that they start with product definition, but when it comes to the user experience, they by the time they reach there, they've already lost how their user segment or how their market is going to experience leveraging that application or leveraging that service. So do remember that doesn't matter which interview do you go to. If you are a product person, whether 1-person team, 5-person team, 50 people company, 30 people company, always be empathetic, right? Always be empathetic to how your users and customers are going to use your product. And that is the one that is going to help you build connections with your customers, get more feedback. So the user experience has become a very important requirement. There are technology, so there are careers even in that space. So there are like UX, which is user experience research, user experience design, user interface. So there are these variety of these roles in which you can also enter into if you want to get to a product management leadership role. So depending on which company I've been, I have it like engineering and UX teams and UXR teams, all of them reported to me or dotted line to me. So those are also alternative careers that you can try. Like if let's say you're going from engineering to this, user experience is very important. And there is a technical aspect to it. There is an intuitive aspect to it. And there is a people aspect to it. Let's say, and again, coming back to what has changed in COVID-19 scenario when it comes to user experience. We're all working from home. For almost 8 to 9 weeks, when as I mentioned, I worked for a cloud provider, and then there was a lot of load. For example, we call that network. A lot of load, and when everybody's trying to connect, there's a product that my team leads that's called, say, DNS, cloud DNS. So that's what is used when you say www.google.com. So it goes to a service called DNS, which kind of resolves and takes you out to something called IP address, or makes a connection to your service. Service is like when you say google.com, let's say service is search, service is video if you're on Facebook, but you're using now. So service is like, if you have Meet or Zoom, they're a collaborative product. If you're talking to somebody using chatbot, that's a service. But at the beginning, it starts with, let's say, something called DNS goes there. So these are technology things. Why am I talking about that? So one thing which we have seen over years has also happened for people who are in product roles. The most important is like, are you empathetic to the customer needs, customer demands, and how they experience it? Are you inclusive? You're left-hander, right-hander, that all matters. If I am using my phone and my application from a phone with right hand, it's a different user experience versus left hand, right? If I am colorblind, it's a different experience than I'm not colorblind, right? And then depending on what some part of the world, there are people who actually prefer smaller phones, bigger phones. I'm using example of phone, it's easier to say. And also in the mobile world, it's all about mobile devices. It could be laptop as well. But the most important is user experience. And then what has happened over years, if you start looking at, let's say, some of the CEOs of these big companies, let's say, Google, Facebook, and all of them, like Google Cloud, you would start to see a convergence of technology leaders leading product management experience, or the CEO of the company, right? Whether it's Salesforce or others, they're very technical people, right? The technical people, and that's why I use these terms like TNS and APIs and web browsers and HTTP, because in 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you would see that, hey, there were a lot of, when I did my MBA, then folks would say, hey, the founder of the startup, who's a technology, who's a coder, typically would not be a CEO of the company. That has changed over time because these people like who are building technology, they are also because of how convergence, how the technology, different technologies that have come in, whether it connects to and how people are using it, it is reducing that gap. It is reducing that gap. That's why this field of product management, people come from both part of the world. Like you may be somebody who has huge sales experience. You may be somebody who has customer engineering experience, professional services experience, marketing experience. You come into product management, or you may be somebody really, really smart in engineering. So I come from engineering background. So you may be somebody really smart in engineering, or you may be somebody who's just in user experience side of the world. So this is why you have seen this product management category grow, because this role needs to have this combination of all: user empathy, technology, because I'm a technology leader, and then bringing the sales and the business and the reach. How do you reach? How do you be the the coach or teacher or sponsor of your own product? So there is a lot of marketing aspects involved too. There is partnership aspects involved. There is business kind of role involved. But there is a lot of technology involved, at least in Bay Area. And I've lived in Boston. I ran a startup there, Drift.io. I was in Target. I was a vice president for cloud compute architecture there. So these roles are converging, but technology is becoming more and more a driver in your language. So while business is always because you're doing this to solve a problem, and at the end of the day, either you're doing it for nonprofit or you're doing it for profit. In either case, customer adoption is absolutely, absolutely important. That's why we always start with customer empathy, because customer adoption is important, user adoption is important. But then if you're for profit, you must know your numbers well. You must know how and what the outcome will be. So, so user experience, very, very important. And how and why I use this technology language is that has become, I would say, a P0. In product management, we use like priority a lot. So P0 means priority 0, which is like, hey, without this, nothing can happen. So technology is becoming, I would say, a requirement. It's not even like I would say anymore that it is a USP that you have. It is becoming a requirement. As much as business knowledge, as much as your empathy towards people and customer, these three pillars are becoming very important. That's why I say that people, problem, process, and technology, because they all deliver to a specific need for solving a problem. So Rishi, do you have something to add to that, or like?
Good. So this is setting the context for how any one of us can engage in the role of product management. And these are some wonderful insights from an industry expert. And you look at, just go to Lakshmi's LinkedIn profile. I was just looking through very, very impressive set of experience, accomplishments. And we can make this very engaging. So we can, if you have questions that you would like to bring up, let's go for it. And let's put Lakshmi a little bit on the hot seat and see what questions you have. Anybody? Just have to unmute yourself because you're all muted right now, and you can get the questions going.
Hey, Rishi. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Hey, Lakshmi, Sunil here. How are you?
Hey, Sunil. Hi.
Yeah. Hey. But, one thing I would like to say that I know Lakshmi, gave a pretty good introduction of the PM role and the customer-centric view.
Hold on, Sunil. I have to introduce you. Because Sunil, I always, when I meet Sunil, I call him the big data guru. He's like, he and I were together in IBM, and then we sort of crossed paths in different ways. And Sunil ended up at Informatica, and today he's an executive at Microsoft. And he really understands the data challenges very well. And whenever I meet him, I always say, "Hello, Mr. Big Data Guru. How are you?" So, go ahead, Sunil. Sorry.
No. So yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah. So what actually, one thing, I am seeing, because I have also done the product management role for some time. So, heads up to Silicon Valley, I know because of COVID, we're at home, but some product managers from Google, LinkedIn, and they all start a product management school, like 2-3 years back. Let me believe that those schools are also, spread this customer-centric, experience, right? How you start, all that. And I have met a lot of students, right? They will go to those schools and they'll come back and say, hey, I want to get a job at, hello? Yeah. Yeah. Hello? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what will happen was, there is a big demand, from the product management centric side, so there is a front end side of the things, that's okay, but there is a big back end side of all that experience, right? And having worked for some startups for last 2-3 years, pretty good startups, as a product manager, right? I need to be, not only do the sketching, not to take the user interviews, now I have to do that. And at the same time, I need to make sure that, when I push my code to Google or Azure or AWS, so you need both the sides.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I just wanted to add that if you smaller the company, you need a more bigger view of the landscape.
Yeah. So one thing, thanks for adding that point. And as you mentioned, like not just for small companies, I work for a very large company, and I worked for like very large companies before. I see, like, that's why I use the word CEO. Like when you are a CEO of a startup, so I as a product manager of a product, like, one product my team launched is called Network Intelligence Center. So that brings in like compute and AI ML infrastructure, GPUs, and then firewall and intelligence and data and API and network and all of it together, right? So that, what does that mean? That even from the time when we think about what the name would look like, and sitting in the engineering and figuring out like what would be the front end look like, and then you're sitting in design, then you're even thinking about, should I do my social marketing? How do I write a business case? It's really doing, product management role is really, like, as I said, not just people out, but people in as well. How you're collaborating, how you're learning with engineering and like UX and docs, and documentation is a big word, product marketing and campaigns, and then branding, all of that, right? So in smaller companies, because I run startups too. So when I was on Rift.io and then another startup, so it was one marketing person. So I basically revamped my whole site. I was writing blogs every week. I was tweeting, and that was my first time kind of learning how to tweet, right? That was 4 or 5 years ago. So you're absolutely right. Like, and that's what a startup CEO would do, right? So you are a founder and a CEO, you just put every single hat. I think that's what you're trying to say, that this is like, as a product manager, you need to know a lot of these skills because your end goal is that how the problem gets solved, right? Get it done, right? And then just get it done and then say, hey, happy, like I launched my product, but how you're like making sure that it continues to run and it continues to deliver to the success and the promise that you have had with your people, right? The customers. And also to your internal audience. Like if as a product, you told your engineering, you do this, and I promise you, I'll get you this much money. I'll get you these many customers every day. And if you don't do that, like imagine what's going to happen to your, credibility with your organization, right? So a lot of trust, a lot of skills, like whether it is negotiation, whether it is people, whether it is building relationships, it takes it all.
Yep. Yes. Thank you, Lakshmi. Yes, you covered that. That's pretty good. Yeah.
So if there are no other questions, then I will continue. So one of the things, again, I'm speaking from, say, because this is career advice. So I'm speaking, the hat I've taken is that, hey, if you were interviewing at places, if you're building your resumes, if you're looking at your LinkedIn profile, so what are the things that matter, right? So the things that matter being a product manager, as I described, very important, very important. In Google's term, we call that Googliness. Like, what does it mean? One is that be empathetic, right? And when you're being empathetic to people outside, and if you're not empathetic to your own company, your own peers, your own stakeholders, That's not going to work, right? So that is very important when you're in a product management role, as like, Sunil mentioned and Rishi mentioned, and I'm saying, when you're thinking, you cannot just be delivering something. Hey, this is COVID-19, and I'm working with a university, and that, let's say, Google is working with. They are taking a lot of data, and my team is building a platform in front of it. They are using CDN, they're using GPU, they're using compute, they're using all of these. But if those people inside who are really working, in first few weeks, for example, some people work 16, 18 hours, maybe nonstop, right? Keeping the infrastructure up, making sure support was right, making sure SRE team was right, making sure we were updating documentation, we were prioritizing every minute. If I'm not empathetic, if I'm empathetic to the needs of outside people, and if I was not thinking as a leader of what was happening in order to help people throughout the globe, what was happening to my own teams, what was happening to documentation team, what was happening to crisis management team, I would not be a good product manager. So this is product manager, and that's why I go back to the phrase CEO. You're looking at the health of your teams, your organization, as well as external. So and that language comes in. So think about, like, what are the skills, like, hey, what was the last time? Like, I think one of the questions, Rishi, what was the last time that you failed, let's say, in building a product or adoption of a product? And then start kind of, I said, dissecting the problem and say that, was it something because I did not gain trust externally, or was it something because I did not understand the whole chain of process and execution process internally? So very important as a CEO that you take care of the health of your team, health of the process, and then that's where we go to key process. What is the process like? I had an MVP, I looked at the market. Yes, I knew there is a huge adoption, whether it is for non-profit, whether it is for profit. I had a massive plan. Everybody got onboarded because I'm so awesome. I was able to convince everybody. I was able to get the budget. But then when the execution happened, during that, you forgot about prioritization, right? You said, yep. And then some of the people that would come to me in my teams or previous roles, I had like hundreds of thousands of people reporting to me. So when they come and they said that, oh, Lakshmi, you told me that this will work and we already had yes for it. I'm like, yes, but there are all these 50 other things that we're doing. First step is that you convince everybody, yeah, it's cool and there's a demand for it, there's a need for it. But did you look at this rest 99 things? Because we were the team who had also convinced the board or the team or leadership of this rest 99 things, right? So coming back to, let's say, now this crisis example, if your teams are doing already 100 things, and then now you know that your new priority is to help people out, serve the people. So that was for Google, that was our mission, like during this time, that is our mission, help the people first and then serve the people first. That's kind of our logo. So we decided to first be in the serving mode. So then that doesn't mean that we could continue to do the rest of the things, even if they were bringing a lot of money, a lot of things, but then we had to immediately do a prioritization. So that requires talking to all these people I talked about. Hey, marketing has a launch, campaign team has a launch, and then we were talking to these analysts, we were talking to the press folks. We had a big plan. You need to communication team. You need to go back to all those people. And then you need to make sure that, so while we continue to help people on outside, but a product management's role is also that, how am I making sure that all the things that are in pipeline, people who were assigned, people who are working on it, they are also being taken care of. They are being communicated well. We have immediately put in a plan that the things which were already in motion, what is going to happen to that? So while we immediately take care of, so product management, I feel, is always in this, pandemic is the wrong word, but we are always into that prioritization, always continuous prioritization mode. What matters most? But then the thing they don't matter, then you have to go to all these people I talked about, a lot of people, a lot of teams in a big organization. In a smaller, it is less, but then in smaller, there are a lot more at stake, right? So a lot more at stake if you deprioritize something, because you promised your VCs, you promised your companies, like your board members, then you said, wow, this is what I will do, and this is how I will justify your time in the board and justify your investment. But then if you need to make a change, that's a huge pivot. So very important. So the next part, as I said, look at you always have to be, that's not the next step. In fact, that is the first step. As product management, as I said, like the most important thing as a product management the head of your product or being the CEO of your product is that what is one thing that I want to be seen for? You know, what is one thing and what is one culture? What is one thing as culture I want to be known for? What is one thing that I want to be delivering to the world that my product should be known for, my company should be known for? There could be still 50 other things, as I mentioned, but that clear communication of what is it that you're delivering, and then internally, what culture and process you have set up to talk and meet with all those people I described, because that requires a nice, solid, tight culture in alignment when it comes to empathy for each other, but also directionally, are you always on that one thing or two things or three things that you have promised to your customers, promised to your board, promised to your stakeholders? That's all product management. So that's why, I love to keep saying that, hey, you're the CEO because you're the one who are making that decision. You're the one who are corralling people and thoughts and ideas, but then keeping them always focused on this P0 that you have decided for your organization. Not you have worked with many people, just that you're seen as a person you're the face of that, right? So you need to be able to continue to stand, be there for your team, representing on their behalf, and be very clear in how you're doing it, what people you're doing it. But prioritization, that's your role. So, so these are the kinds of questions, like, as I mentioned, like the idea is that doesn't matter which product do you pick. I picked up a product called DNS. I picked up a product called Network Intelligence Center. I could pick up another, say cloud product. If you know Google Cloud, then you would know a product called Anthos, product called Kubernetes, or if I go think about Target, then your products would be that supply chain. Product would be store experience. Product would be how a truck is delivering. So transportation is a product. Shipping is a product, right? So how you do the whole supply chain management. So the role is to define the experience. Role is that how the process works with the help of people, but do not confuse what your priority is. Do not confuse what your users were looking. So when you're interviewing, when you're talking as a product manager, one thing is you cannot ever confuse about is the messaging, people, and how you're delivering, who you're delivering for. It doesn't matter how many questions your interviewer asks. Remember that. Always come back to that point. Why did you start with that journey? And the end should always be, as I mentioned, success of the matrix. It could be anything. That could be, like, as I said, non-profit, profit, big, small. But you should be very clear what your success matrix is. If you are not addressing global population, you do not have to be thinking about what would the law in, like, Indonesia, or what would be the law in so UK or somewhere, how would that impact my product? It's a good idea to always have that as an alternative as a product manager, knowing, because what if you expand? But when you're writing a strategy for 3 to 5 years and you're not even thinking going global, then that's not the problem you should be solving today. That's not how you would be putting your success matrix. So your success matrix on how your product at the end should be very clear. Your success matrix should be clear. And if you don't meet them, how do you iterate back? Would you refine your matrix? How would you define your success? How do you communicate it back to all those people that I described, right? So that is very important. So remember that. Keep the focus, strategy. Remember who the people are, internal, external, outside. You are communicating on their behalf. Remember the success matrix. And when you don't meet the success, keep iterating over, keep communicating back. That's really, like, regardless of what the product is. As I mentioned, like, I have been in consumer business. I know how stores operate. I know how shipping happens. I monitor and worked with robotics companies. I have helped many, say, drone companies, shipping companies, oil and gas, you name a company, manufacturing, in all my previous life. Yeah.
You have a wide variety of experience. We are getting to about 2:54, so let's see how we can wrap this up and bring it home. So I don't know if you have finished your presentation, but Kanu has a question. Kanu, please unmute yourself and ask your question. She has her hand up, and if anyone of you have questions, then please just click on that hand icon, and we'll get you going.
Okay. Thank you, Rishi. Hi, Lakshmi. This is Kanu, and I really appreciate your presentation today. I noticed that PM has to be very multifaceted. it's and you have a wide array of experience. I have been a technology person, and I am actually trying to understand if I plan to move to or transition to product management, what are the steps you would recommend? Also, I wanted to find out if MBA is more like the base of your cherry pie or it's a cherry on the top.
There are couple of streams, thought streams about like whether to do MBA or not. I was in engineering. I did my MBA, and it was thankfully it was sponsored by my company because they thought I should do it. I learned a lot during my MBA, and I have leveraged it, and I've leveraged the learning. But then a lot of it is really on the job. So since you have been in one stream for a long time, Kanu, if you have been in engineering, I think that pivot helps unless you get an opportunity in the company that you're in, and they can offer you product management role. Having a degree has helped, but also I would not recommend. Product management is a lot about, as you heard from me, is on the job training. So if you don't just go for an MBA degree because you want a degree, but go to a university which gives you a lot of hands-on experience, industry experience. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. Very appreciated.
Sure.
Okay, I don't see any hands apart from anyone else has a question to ask. So Lakshmi, we'll let you take this home and wrap this up with your final insights. It's been a very productive presentation, Lakshmi. Thank you so much for taking the time. This is, you're an industry expert and you have delivered a lot of great value to everybody who's been attending today. So please take it away.
Yeah, thank you. So just last word, like, P, prioritization, P, product, problem, people, process, and at the end of the day, you have you should have metrics that help you measure the success. And success could also be that you shut down your product, but knowing that when do you stop, when do you exit, and is really important.
This is a very interesting question that came up. And I think we are getting some comments that this was such an amazing and informative presentation. Thank you so much. We're getting some very good comments. Now, a question that is popped up, and it was sent to me privately, so I will not mention the name. How do you negotiate with a tough engineering leader?
Yes.
This is a question I ask. I think you can always pivot with one thing which I've always seen, that there is nothing, and I've been engineering, there is nothing more than getting the product out in the hands of a customer that an engineering team wants. So if you can always be very objective with data, and engineering team is about data, there are people with logic. So data, customer, I've always seen that them coming, in alignment with you. So they really want to see their products in the hands of customers and users.
Hey, Rishi?
Yes.
So I'd like to add a comment here, right? So this is my second week at Microsoft. And then yesterday I got an email from Australian customer having some escalation issue. And my manager copies me, copying to the R&D head. Look, I'm the new guy, and this R&D head, who is very good, he thinks it's not their problem. But I'm the new PM, or PM leader, executive, or whatever. Look, so we have to play a very, very creative role here. Collect the data, understand the segments, right? Who are the players? What is the history? You correlate everything, and then go back. You just can't go to engineering head because they're so busy. Oh, this is coming up. Can you fix it? No. Just giving an idea, Hello?
Yeah,
very nice. Very nice.
Lakshmi, I didn't want to, steal your thunder. I just added something.
No. These are all absolute, ideas. It's just because I'm speaking here doesn't mean that I'm the only leader. Right? So this is every session is a mutual learning session. So thank you for adding that to me. Yeah. So this is 3 o'clock, Rishi. So I knew that you had to go to another session. So, but thank you again for the opportunity. And all the listeners now and in the future can connect with me. And once again, Rishi, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Lakshmi, would you like to share your contact information by any chance?
Yeah.
If you would like to, please put a comment, a chat, put it in the chat and you can let everybody know.
I will do that. Yeah. It's lakshmisharma@gmail.com. That's my email ID. So, and then also a lot of people reach out to me on LinkedIn. I always actually at least respond. And we work really long hours. So sometimes, like not just here, but in almost every company I've been. So sometimes I may not respond right away, but I always make it a point to respond back, even from people who I don't know. In fact, a lot of people who I don't know. So feel free to reach out and lakshmisharma@gmail.com.
So Lakshmi, this was so informative. Lots of great content in here. What I would like to suggest for you is to essentially do a version 2 of this. And in a few weeks, let's get back together and let's do a version 2 and do a little double click in terms of, because you obviously, I think you provided a great broad perspective. Now let's dig through and analyze, perhaps a couple use cases that you can drill through and sort of highlight, the importance of the role, but also like the question that came up, how do you handle we all work with engineering teams. They are very, very good, but they are sometimes can be very rigid in their ways. And so I think having that sort of discussion would be very good as well,
Awesome.
So
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Let's do that. Yeah.
So
Thank
we'll
you
do a version 2 of this soon.
Yeah. Let's do that.
Okay. No other questions. I got a comment from Muhammad, great and insightful session from Lakshmi. Oh, there are some, hold on, Lakshmi, there might be some questions on Facebook. So hold on, let's just go and review that. Okay, Kalpana Jaswa is asking something. Massive shift has taken place in the change in the post-coronavirus. Can you talk about the, okay. What advice do we recent grads who are still in the post-COVID-19 market for jobs? Who are stepping in this? I don't know. That is another. Okay, so I think this is good. I mean, they were sort of very general questions, not specific to product management. So we'll wrap it up now. I'm sorry, it's we have a few things going on. So thank you again, Lakshmi. You inspire everybody. And when I see you, how you operate in the community also, you are truly an inspiration. You and the whole family, you are creating.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Yeah.
She's been helping a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, enjoy the rest of the Memorial Day weekend. Bye.
You all too. Bye.
Bye.